Okay, so it is 2:01 over here on the East Coast. So I'm going to go ahead and get started and say good afternoon, good morning. I believe some of you, your time is even 6 a.m. tomorrow. So welcome for everybody who is joining us today. And as I mentioned, I'm just going to go ahead and do a very quick introduction, kind of go over some of the housekeeping items, and then pass it over to April. So today's presentation is going to be on how to support your staff in today's environment and beyond. Next slide, please. So as we talked about before, we are recording this session. So if at any point during the Learning Collaborative you cannot attend, we are recording and we'll post it on the discussion board. Please feel free to ask questions either in the chat or in the Q&A. We're all going to be keeping track of that so that all your questions can be answered. At the end of the series, we will have a session evaluation. And of course, please have fun, which I think is very easy to do with April leading us. And next slide. And then this is just the same thing. This is where you can find the chat function, and this is where you can find the Q&A. I will say, please select all panelists and attendees or to everyone. That way we can see your questions, we can read it. If you send it personally to us, then we're able to still get them, but it's great when the whole group can see the questions that you're providing. And then next slide. Okay, so I also just quickly want to remind everyone, please go to the discussion board. This is where you would log in, and then you would click on High Functioning Managers Learning Collaborative. This is on chcworkforce.org. On there you can find the recordings. We also post any of the PDFs that we use during the session, so your homework will be on there. Any other things that we reference. Also, something new is we had talked about giving some implementation tips after each of the sessions. So that was just posted on for session 1. So basically this is just that if, how can you take this information and actually go ahead and apply it to your job, to your health center. And then I see Jennifer has a question of who did the email come from for the login info. That should be from info at, and Mariah, is that info@clinicians.org? that the email comes from?
I feel like it says CHC Workforce.
Okay, CHC Workforce. That's what
Yeah, sorry, I had myself on double mute there. It should come from info@chcworkforce.org. And if you haven't got that, it is time sensitive, so just shoot me an email and I can reset your account so it'll send it to you.
Yep, and thank you for bringing that up, actually, because one of the things I wanted to mention is we got some bounce back emails, and we think that it may just be some filters. If you haven't received it, please go ahead and email Mariah or myself. Mariah can put her email in the chat box. I will put mine as well, and we'll make sure that you get it, or you may just need to talk to your IT department to be able to lift those restrictions, and then it could go over to you. So, and then next slide. And then just really quickly, and I meant to mention this in the first session, here at the STAR Center, we focus on 8 core components of what a full functioning health center should be. So this learning collaborative, as you can see here, is all about high functioning managers. However, all of these work in unison with each other. So if you have any more questions about any of these, like I said, I'm going to put my email in the chat box. Please feel free to reach out as well. And we do have the whole team here today. So we have Mariah Blake, Sabrina Eddington, and Suzanne Spears. So we'll be looking at the chat. We'll be here to answer any questions you may have. And I believe now this is my last slide, so I can go ahead and pass it over to April. Oh, and of course, this is our wonderful presenter.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to session number 2 of our Learning Collaborative. Thank you all so much. I just want to take a step back to last week, or week before last. I know we stayed on a little longer than we planned because I really wanted to get through the introduction so you can know who you were with and who you were going to be connected to over the next several weeks. So as I mentioned to you all last week, I am officially a new parent and I have a puppy. So today I am more nervous than ever while speaking because the little puppy is in here running free because I have people doing work in the front of my place, and she was going bananas like in her cage. So please send up positive vibes that she keeps herself entertained and do not, impede on your experience today. So with that, I want to do a quick recap of session number 1. First and foremost, Michelle gave you great instruction on the online community, which we absolutely want you to use. We absolutely want you to stay connected, ask questions, go there for the resources, and engage with each other. The second thing we talked about last week was, a manager versus leader. And just as a quick recap, these are some of the descriptive words of what managers focus on versus what leaders focus on. And again, I say it wasn't necessarily about the name or the title. It's about the function. It's about what you do that really makes all the difference. And we went into the specific leadership styles. And on your screen, you see the ones that we went into great detail about. And your homework was to just kind of sit with yourself. I had a few questions that I wanted to go over for you to think about the culture of your organization, and then to think about the culture of your team. And you did it in an assessment prior to starting the course, but then we wanted you to do it on this homework assignment to say, what does your ideal team look like? That if you could make a wish or the genie in a bottle and you could transform your team to be whomever and however you wanted them to be, what do they look like? How do they perform? And then lastly, to say, what type of leadership style do you need to adopt or continue on to bring that type of team to pass? So before we get into the day and you hear me talking for the next, 50 minutes or so, I would love to open up to anyone who would love to share from their homework assignment as it relates to your organizational culture, the leadership style that you adopted, and then also, were there any of these styles that made you think of a previous supervisor? Did you have a visionary supervisor, one who was very much democratic? So I want to open up the floor, and I'm going to put my view on gallery. So please just unmute yourself and just at least one person. I'd love to hear from you about your homework. So I will pause and let whomever like to go speak. Hopefully everyone is unmuted. Does anyone want to share from their homework or anything from last week's session?
And April, I believe that people are able to unmute themselves if they hover over, there's like a little mute, it says mute, and if you click on that, you should be able to unmute yourself. If you are having issues, just let us know in the chat and Mariah can go ahead and unmute you.
Okay. Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right. I don't think we have a volunteer, so I'm going to be so boldly as to call on someone. Jennifer.
Me, Jennifer?
Yes. Well, Jennifer Cobb. I was looking at Jennifer Blackman, but Jennifer Cobb, yes, you go.
Oh, man, I should have just kept my mouth shut.
I know. That means you got something great to share.
So I didn't have the descriptions written down for what you had described for the type of leaders or managers, but I think that more often I have experienced managers, not leaders. People who are reactive. So like they wait for something to happen and then they love to put out fires. And then at the end of the day say, I spent all day putting out fires. Like they really feel like that got something accomplished rather than thinking about like the root cause and trying to prevent from always having fires.
Right. I love that you say that, spend all day putting out fires. I have a client that I do executive coaching for, and we are working on his speech because he loves to use that phrase, oh, I'm putting out fires. I said, you do realize that you constantly are creating fires by saying that you are putting out fires. So right. I love that you said that we have to watch what we say because it's not a sign of leadership or being, proactive, like you said. It's just something's wrong, let me fix it. And you can do that all day long. So thank you for that. Anyone else before we move forward? All righty. So with that, I want to do, and this is just for you to, a little self-reflect as you think about, last week. And we always want to make sure that you're getting value out of it. So again, in that discussion board, you have my contact email, the team at, the STAR² Center. If you have any questions or feedback or feel like there's a certain part of the conversation that you want to be lifted up, please, please, please check in with us, because our goal is to make sure that what we're presenting, what we're discussing is valuable for you, and obviously for you and how you engage with your team. So please just check in with us and let us know if there's any area as you look at the topics for the next few weeks, if you really want to focus on one thing, or you're having a challenge with something, or whatever the case may be. This is your learning experience. I am here as a faculty and facilitate the conversation, but we know what we put in something is absolutely directly correlated to what we get out of it. So please do check in with us over the next few weeks. So today is actually one of the most favorite topics that I love talking about as it relates to like training, because it's all about, supporting your staff and understanding your people and what they need. And a lot of times when it comes to thinking about what other people need, we often just can take a step back and think about what we need or what we needed and when we were in their respective positions. So today I want to talk about what support means to you. And then I also want to talk about what does your team need and how can you give it to them. So when you think about today and tomorrow, going to Jennifer's point, reactive, responding to what's happening today, but sitting back and being prepared for what's on the horizon. I don't believe any of us ended 2019 expecting by any chance that 2020 would look like it. I saw a meme where someone said, I should get a refund for my 2020 planner, because we all had stuff in our calendar that we were going to do, places we were going to travel, and everything shut down. So what support is needed today and tomorrow? Well, today, these are some of the issues that we're dealing with. We have the pandemic, we have our social issues, and I'm so sorry for my puppy. We have the pandemic, we got the social issues, we have the election going on. You have people's family affairs, they're homeschooling, which is a completely new space for so many parents, work responsibilities, and of course, life. And life is all of the above and then some. And then tomorrow, how do we prepare for what's ahead? How do we prepare for everything that could be coming down the pipeline? When you think about doing your strategic plans, we look for 3 to 5 years for most of them. And a lot of times that document can lie dormant. We spend 2 days out in a nice venue, and then we say, this is what's going to happen. This is how we're going to project. This is how we're going to respond to everything. And then, of course, all of today's issues can represent themselves. Then technological changes. Think about when you transferred your EHR, when you transferred even an Exchange server for your email. Changes in leadership, changes in how you deliver care, grant requirements, new accreditations, disruptions. So how can we and you as managers and leaders of your team be responsive to what's possible that's coming down the pipeline when you got what you're dealing with today and then what could come tomorrow? But I want to ask you this. How do you support your staff when everything is always changing? When you look at your team right now, and some of you have team members that are in one physical location, and then you have team members that are in your respective satellite sites. How do you support your staff when everything is changing? But the real question is, how do you support staff with multiple personality types, conflicting priorities, a never-ending task list, and leadership that may or may not get it when everything is changing? So it's not easy. You have a lot on your plate. You have a lot to do, your respective tasks, your requirements, conflicting priorities, all of this. And then you have a team of people that need your attention, that need your guidance, that need your direction, that need your support. So first and foremost, I want you to exhale and remember that leadership is an art. It's not a science. If it was a science, it'd be very practical, very straight to the point, very, methodical, very scientific, but it's an art. So that means it takes time. It takes time to learn how to manage your people. It takes time to figure out what is it that they need. What is it that my people need to be successful? How do I need to show up for my team? What do I need from my leadership so I can help them be great? And then it also takes practice. You know, we're in healthcare. Our physicians practice medicine. There isn't one way to do anything. Every situation is going to present itself in a different manner. So you need practice. And lastly, you need perseverance. You need to keep going when it's exhausting, when it's challenging, when it feels like you're by yourself, when you feel like you're on an island away from everybody, when nothing makes sense. So when you think about managing your people and you think about what they need and how you can support them, remember, this is an art. It takes time, practice, and perseverance. One of my favorite quotes from John Maxwell: leaders must be close enough to relate to others, but far enough ahead to motivate them. And when I read that quote, I think about the connection that you want to have with your team, the connection that you want to have with them, but then also being able to pull them up, leveraging their strengths, but speaking to their weaknesses to give them the growth and the development that they need. So I want you to take a mindful moment. I want you to just think about, when do you feel most supported at work? When do you feel your leadership, your supervisor is supporting you? When does that feeling of I'm on an island, I'm by myself, nobody can feel my pain, when does that feel lifted because you know that your leadership and your peers and colleagues have your back? So it's not for you to think out loud, but I want you to connect with what is it that you should do and need to do and can do for your team members based off what you need for yourself. When I think about support, it is always a simple question: how can I support you? The best leaders that I had who were always there for me, they would ask, do you need help with anything? How can I support you? Do you understand? You know, just letting me know that they were present. Even if I was a high performer or a go-getter, whatever the case may be, just knowing that they would check in made me feel supported. Because even if I got to a point where I was like exhausted or I felt like I had a lot on my plate, I knew at the drop of a dime, I could get them to help me. So your team, who are you managing? You're managing an eclectic group of people. Eclectic from where they're from, their values, their beliefs, their ideas, what they're interested in, their education levels, all of the above. But this is who you're really managing, the challenges that you face with your team. They have strong personalities. And I went back and forth because this word was used specifically in the assessment of what challenges you are facing. And strong personalities, that is good, bad, or indifferent. Strong just means that it's strong. They are who they are, and that's how they show up and present themselves. They need to increase productivity. This is always something. You always want your team to be top performers. You always want your team members to go above and beyond and excel. You want them to get the job done. You only have so much time throughout the day. So how can you get your team members to perform? Turnover, the constant door, the rotating door, people coming in, you train them up, you have systems in place, things are working, the workflow is solid, you got the perfect provider with the perfect MA, your front desk staff is solid, and then disruption comes because someone got a new opportunity. Dealing with organizational changes. You know, if there's changes in the structure of the organization, it's going to change the way your team operates. So you, as a manager of a team of 3, 5, 7 or above, when there's changes at the corporate level, of course, you have to be responsive to that. So that's a challenge when you have your operation solid and your team is moving down the path, consistency, getting things done. And then all of a sudden there's a new CEO. Or all of a sudden you're opening up a new site, so your team has to get split. So again, things that happen at the corporate level affect your team. And then a plan to advance your team. How can you support your team? How can you help them go from good to great and great to epic? How can you ensure their professional growth and development is happening even throughout the day when you already have enough on your plate? Trust issues. That is huge. I'm working on a 9-month engagement right now with Community Health Center because there was a severe breakdown in trust at the HR level, and it's permeated throughout the organization. So morale is low, work isn't getting done. There's venomous statements getting stated online. It's a lot that's happening. So we're making this a long-term process to rebuild trust within this respective organization. And that's far to the right. It can be something as simple as your team member really having a challenging day personally, and they don't have the trust in you to say, I need a day off, or I need to take a mental health day, or I'm taking a sick day, whatever the case may be. So that's a challenge when your people don't feel like they can talk to you about issues that affect their performance. Burnout. We know in healthcare, we are more susceptible to being burnt out than other industries because of constantly serving, constantly having to put ourselves on the back burner to show up for other people. So we know burnout is a big deal. The EHR causes burnout, you know, patient volumes, regulatory affairs, things of that nature cause burnout. And your staff may not come to you and say, hey, supervisor, I'm burnt out, so I need to take some days off. So as a leader, you have to look and see, what are they not saying? How are they presenting themselves in person and virtually? Are they, you know, a little more sluggish than before? Is their productivity drastically changing? Are you noticing a change in their attitude? Is it seemingly becoming more negative? They struggle with working closely as a team. The silos of a team. You have a small team, but yet somehow within that small team, you got another small team and another small team. So I get it. I've seen it. When I used to do technical assistance and I would do my discovery calls with the leadership and say, you know, what are some of your pain points? The top two were communication and silos. So it's like those two truly intersect because people aren't talking and working together. And then a genuine lack of respect, you know, respect of the direct report, respect of the leadership in and of itself, respect of the company policies. So that's a challenge for you when respect isn't one of those things that's easily taught. I remember working for a CEO, and after my interview, excuse me, I was going to work at the state PCA, and I'm ex-military, he was ex-military, and I remember after I got hired and, you know, did the take me out to lunch thing, the first comment he made, he said, you know, when you sat down, the first thing I noticed about you was that you said, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir, and that you smiled. He said, I knew at that moment that I could teach you anything about a job because I can't teach anyone how to smile or I can't teach anyone how to be respectful. And that really warmed my heart, especially being from the South. My mom would have been very pleased because that's how she raised us. But then it really made me think about the importance of how you show up as a person, knowing that you're representing not only yourself, but your supervisor, your team, and the company. And you can't teach respect. You can demonstrate it and you can influence it, but sometimes you just have to let people understand what does it look like, and by you doing it, by you exemplifying that behavior and your other team members as well. And then lastly, your team needs more face time with you. They want to connect with you. You want to connect with them, but you have your list, you have your multiple locations, you have everything that you have on your plate. So how can you get to them in a way that they don't feel like they're on an island? So again, the interconnection between what you're dealing with, the support that you need, and what do they need is not as far-fetched as you may think. So what does the ideal team look like? All of these awesome words, they're collaborative, they're oriented, they're focused, they're committed, you know, they're honest, they're go-getters. This is what you aspire to have. This is what you desire to have. And I will tell you, it's closer than you may think. And what I want to do today is kind of take the way you look at your employee and shift it a little bit to really focus on the human, because we all know that a company's greatest asset is its people. It is your people. We are not widgets. I say it all the time. We are not robots. People do the work. You know, we have kiosks that check people in, but it's nothing like saying good evening, good morning, you know, good afternoon, patient, the doctor will be with you in a moment, or can I get you water, whatever the case may be. You can't replace that human connection and that human interaction, especially in the industry of healthcare. So how do we get from the challenges that we face with our team to this ideal team, and that ideal team that you thought about last week and as you worked on your homework? Well, I want you to start looking at your people from a 4D perspective. We know 3D, we hear about it often, but a 4D perspective. And I want you to understand, because I'm a firm believer in seek first to understand, then be understood. And then also, how can we engage and connect? Because I am willing to bet that all of you rock stars, you have people on your team that can do their job. When it comes to getting the task done, putting in the right information in the EHR, running the report, you know, whatever the case may be, writing the care plan, whatever that is, technically, they can do that. Of course, we need training. Of course, we need development, but the job they can do. You hired them based off their skills. It's everything else the whole person that needs to be lifted up, that needs to be inspired, encouraged, and spoken to so they can do the great work that you hired them to do. So this is what your staff look like. This is truly each one of your team members. They show up with these components: the intentional, physical, emotional, and intellectual. It's not just April Lewis, the physical body, coming to work, coming to speak. That's not it. It is the depth of the person that you're working with. Your employee, your team member has these facets within them, and you as well. So as we go through this, I want you to think about a team member. I want you to bring one of your team members to mind as I explain the 4D human concept, just one of them. It doesn't matter who, it doesn't matter their role or whatever the current relationship is. I want you to just think about them so you can make the connection between the depth of the person that you are managing and leading. So from an intellectual standpoint, this is where we spend most of our time, in our head. We're in our head, we're thinking. You're present right now, but who's thinking about the 3 o'clock that they have, or, trying to get to the grocery store, or thinking about, the puppy down here gnawing on your toe, but still having to present. And you're thinking about, as you're talking to your team member, what are they thinking? One of the things I heard, his name was Jay Shetty. He calls himself the urban monk. He says that people spend the vast majority of their time thinking about what other people are thinking about them. So as you're talking to people, you're trying to figure out and process, what are they saying and thinking about me? It's where we always are, in our heads. And our intellectual side is where we do the work, where we understand and develop and establish the processes, the results, the outputs, and our technical skills. And then we have the dimension that helps us communicate our knowledge. So when you're talking to your employee or you're listening to your employee, this part of them is their intellect, when they're able to regurgitate what's going on, when they're giving you a creative idea on how you can decrease cycle time or a more efficient way to do something within your respective office, or why they want to go to this particular, professional development training to advance their skills. That's coming from their intellectual side. This is their logical thinking. So as humans, the intellectual side of us is actually the easier, for lack of a better term, because it can be taught. It can be understood. That is, read something, understand it, regurgitate it. That's the side of your team member and you that shows up. The other side is the emotional side. Now, I know most people don't like to talk about emotions at work because, there are some that still say it's the soft things or it's fluffy. I believe 2020 has showed us, in the absence of emotional balance, you cannot be successful. We need to pay attention and be aware of our emotions. We don't need to let our emotions rule and reign over us, but we have to acknowledge that we are human. And even the strongest, sharpest, most productive, high-performing human has an emotional side to them. And that side impacts every response. How you are emotionally is how you say good morning or good afternoon, and how you respond to some email. How many times have you written an email or response and you all of a sudden knew that you did not need to send it because you needed to take a second to step back from it, take a deep breath, and then dive back in and say whatever needs to be said? That's managing your emotions. And how we truly feel is our emotions. Again, so you have your team member and yourself that they won't necessarily say, I'm burnt out, but they're tired, they're sad. They feel like they're failing at their job because they are tired. So it's how they truly, truly feel, but may not ever say it. And it's how we make other people feel. What's on the inside of you is what's going to come out. So if you have peace and calmness and positivity inside of you, that's what's going to come out. But if you have stress and overwhelm and anxiety inside of you, that's what's going to come out as well. You're going to be short with people. You're not going to be as engaged. You're not going to have your bright, bubbly smile. And then it's impacted by our past, our present, and our future conditions. So that means that some people are stuck in the past. I had a manager one time that used to talk to me like this when I made a mistake. So I'm terrified to make a mistake. So now I'm on eggshells. Or right now, it's so busy right now because we're responding to COVID and I don't know what's going on. So I just got to try to be perfect, even though I'm stressing myself out when I really don't know what to do. Or, oh my goodness, we can have this pandemic again. It can come back next year. Like all of that across the spectrum. Every day, people are balancing what happened to them, what is happening to them, and what could be happening to them. And then they have to show up and do their work. And you have to train them and engage them. So this is the side of your team member that you don't see, but it is ever present. The other side is the physical side. This is what you do see. This is when you look at Sally or Jane or Denise or whomever, you see this. You see their body language. You see when they're in the meeting and they're just like this, or when they're twiddling their hair and they're looking everywhere, or they're staring at you like you're speaking a foreign language. That's what you do see. And their behavior, you know, when they walk in, how are they acting? Do they walk right past everyone without saying good morning? Do they throw their things down? Or do they get in, they say good morning, they set up, they make sure the workstation is solid? How are they behaving? What we do, our physical, what are we doing? Are we choosing to take a lunch break? Oh, it's 11:30, regardless of what's happening right now. It's 11:30, I'm going to eat my lunch, or I'm going to work through because we still have a waiting room full of people. Or, you know, I'm going to take the day off because I'm just not in the mood because yesterday I had a bad day. So I'm not going to show up at all. And what other people see, that's the physical dimension. So what you see of your team member is just that, what you see, what you present and how you present with your body language, and whether you're leaning in when talking or sitting back, whether your arms are folded or not, welcoming the conversation, is what your team members see as well. And the next dimension is the intentional side. The intentional side is our why. Our why is the absolute driving force behind what we do. And we have our overarching life whys, I believe. If you haven't read, which I feel most professionals have, Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, he recommends writing a personal mission statement for yourself. Your organization has a mission statement and a vision statement, but have you ever written one for yourself? What is your life mission? Is your life mission to advance and develop the younger generation? Is your life mission to be a speaker and a voice, an advocate for a specific cause? So what is your why? Why are you at this particular organization at this time with all the skills that you possess, training and leading your team? What is your why? And then your values. What's important to you? What matters to you, regardless of the job, regardless of the team, regardless of the environment that's happening outside of you? What are your value system? Organizations create their values, but what are your values? So your team members, they're coming to work with their values, again, that they may or may not share. Some people value sleep. That's why they can't get to work on time. Some people value recreation. That's why they're trying to be out the door on Friday evening, Friday afternoon early. Some people value other people's opinion. So they're constantly striving to make everyone happy. Some people value recognition, right? So we have all these values that make up us as a person that we present when we're in a professional position. And of course, our beliefs. Again, this is a topic that most people don't like to talk about in the workspace, but our respective beliefs interact and impact how we engage with other people. You know, the Project Implicit that Harvard did on the implicit biases is great for everyone to complete. We will be releasing the manager training toolkit soon. We have information in there and a link for you to take your assessment, but it's basically for you to see, how do you feel about certain subsets of people? And it's good for you to know, because those unconscious biases that we have, they do show up in how we interact and how we respond and how we talk to our team. So I highly recommend that we know, you know, your beliefs, we know ours, and understand that your team members has their respective set of beliefs too, that you may or may not be privy to knowing. And as I said, the intention is the driving force behind every word and every action. So if you feel like there's someone on your team that is literally there to just come to work, that may be all that they're there to do. Their intention may be to get paid, to take care of their family. Someone's intention may be to move up the corporate ladder. Someone's intention may be to take your position as you move up the corporate ladder. So when you think about your team member and you're engaging them, it's not just the physical, what you see, it's the other dimensions. And as it relates to intentional, I will tell you that I feel that is the most important one, the why behind what we do. So that is what the 4D human looks like. So I want you to just think in your head, knowing that your team members are not just the physical person that you see, rather the intellectual, the emotional, physical, and their intention. How is that valuable to you as you think about supporting them and engaging with them and communicating with them? And when communicating is not just speaking, but it's also listening. So this is the makeup of your team member. This is who you're supporting. This is the depth of individuals. And so you take that and how, knowing that it's not just the physical person, it's not just the Sally, John, Joe you see doing the work and that's it. How can you engage and connect with them? So what do they need from you to not particularly satisfy, but for their intellectual side to be supported, that you can do? Meaningful work connected to the mission. When your team can see that even the mundane task that they are doing is connected to the bigger picture to fulfill the mission of the organization, you'll get more buy-in, because it's not just data entry, it's putting in proper and accurate information to make a decision. It's not just changing the way you do your workflow. It's really so we can maximize on the number of patients that we see today, because the community needs us. It's not that we're just moving you from one location to the next. It's because we're short-staffed, and on Mondays and Wednesdays, we are bombarded over there. So let them see how their work is connected to the mission. From you, they want growth, development, and promotion opportunities. Yes, there will always be a group of people, one or two, that just are fine with staying in the same position forever. But most of you have team members that absolutely want to be great. They want to excel. So how can you do that for them? It doesn't always have to be a fancy 3-day, SHRM conference or HIMSS conference. It can sometimes just be giving them the opportunity to take half a day to do some Excel training or go through some public speaking training or presentation skills, something so they can feel being part of this organization is making me a better person, a smarter person, a more efficient and strategic person. Think creatively. Ask them, what type of training do they need? You're going through this to see what type of training you need as a manager. The same for your team member. Leveraging their strengths and their skill set. When I did my trainings for ops teams, I always say, ensure that your people are operating to the top of their skill set and licensure. If you got an RN, let the RN be the RN. Do not have an RN performing the functions of an MA. Yes, we may be understaffed. Someone has to fill in the gap. I get all of that. But let your people and encourage them to operate to the top of their skill set, which means you as their leader, as their manager, have to know what that is. And sometimes it doesn't come through on the resume. My resume for years never said that I was a speaker, but I was speaking across stages nationally. I was speaking with some of the world's most #1 motivational speakers, Les Brown, but I don't have that on my resume. So when you look at your team members and you look at them, how they're showing up, and you look at that ideal team, is there some strengths and skills that are lying within that person that you can lift up? Because in the lifting up of that, what's coming naturally to them, you're also creating those growth and development opportunities for them as well. So see the good and shine the light on them. And then, of course, where there's areas of improvement, that's growth opportunity. That's a development opportunity. So you really can do a SWOT analysis on your people. You can truly say, what are their strengths? What are their weaknesses, their opportunities? And then you can also say, what are their threats? Because there are threats in the workplace. That's a whole nother presentation. But just keep that in mind. Lift up the greatness in your people emotionally. So we don't expect you to cater to the emotions of your team, but you do want to understand that their emotions are there. We do want to recognize that they are human beings. They're not human doings. That's just doing the work. They are being a person. So they need emotional intelligence. And that's you being aware of how you're feeling and how it's impacting them. And vice versa, helping them understand what emotional intelligence is, how they feel, and how it's impacting you. Yes, we all have bad days, but none of us have the right to make our bad day become your bad day because we work together. We have to know how to manage our emotions. It is okay to say, can we table this discussion until another day? Again, going back to a previous conversation, when you need to have conversations, you always want to know, is this the right time to have this conversation? And is this the right place to have this conversation? And it's always the intention behind it. Now, this isn't always easy, especially in high stress moments, in moments like we're in right now. But it's taking a moment, taking that deep breath, taking a step back, and just asking yourself, is right now the best time to say this? Is what I'm saying necessary? Should I be saying it to this person? Am I in the best position to say it right now? We all know that it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So if your staff member dropped the ball in any capacity and you do need to do a disciplinary action, do it, but do it at the appropriate time when you can truly make it a teachable moment, where you can use it as an opportunity for them to grow and you as well, because disciplining another being is never easy. So emotional intelligence goes both ways. Compassion and understanding. You would think in a healthcare setting, we would get that over anyone else, but that's not the case. Your people are showing up every day with the world of what they have going on behind them. COVID-19 has impacted every last one of us in one way or the other. We got family issues, financial issues. Some of your team members don't make enough money to take care of their household. And some of their secondary income may have had to be removed because of COVID. So they need compassion. They need understanding. They need to know that you see them and you empathize with them and you're there to support them. And then ask those open-ended questions. How do you feel we can best resolve this? What do you need to do X, Y, Z? You know, it's not just, are you okay? Because you're going to get a yes, or you're going to get a no without any detail. So compassion and understanding, appreciation, recognition, and reward. This is so huge. I was going to go into all the data and the statistics on, companies that show, staff members that don't feel like they're appreciated. They feel that they would do 37% more work if they just were told good job. And we get all of that. Again, when do you feel most supported at work? When the work that you're doing is acknowledged, or is it just reported out at a staff update meeting and that's it? So your team member, it doesn't have to be, hey, everybody, let's go to Ruth's Chris. It can be an email. I noticed that you organized the whatever. Thank you for doing that. Or I see that you have spent extra time, with this patient until their ride came. Thank you. Whatever the case may be, we're humans. We thrive off that validation. We thrive off of knowing that we are being seen. We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to feel like we belong. When the world of inclusivity now, people are making it far more complicated than what it is. And I don't say that to minimize it because it's not always easy, but remembering that humans thrive off of connection and we thrive in the environment based off the environment that we're in. So tell your people, job well done. Let them know that you see them. When they come up with an idea, even if it's far-fetched or it won't be able to get approved because of things that they aren't aware, acknowledge them and praise them for even opening up and sharing and being creative. And then you determine, based off what they need, how best to recognize them and reward them. The Five Languages of Appreciation. It's a good book. It's written by the same authors who wrote the 5 Languages of Love. And it talks about the different ways that you can show appreciation to your team. But it first begins with an assessment because you want to know how your team is being recognized. Everybody doesn't want to be called up to the front of the room and say, here's a plaque for doing great work. And everybody doesn't want money. Some people will be satisfied with a Post-it note on their monitor saying, thank you. Whatever the case may be, again, how do you like to be shown appreciation? What, when you were coming up through the ranks, really made you feel good and gave you some motivation to press through and go a little bit further, stay a little bit later, dig a little bit deeper, and then do that with your team. Be creative. Physically, what does your team need? Be aware of your body language. This is an art in and of itself. I used to struggle with my face. I have a very strong face. I think it's shaped like a square. I got kind of chinky eyebrows. I got a big smile. Like I used to feel like my face would say everything that I was feeling. And it was because I wasn't aware of it. Then I got to the point to where, and it actually came by becoming an avid meditator to where I can control my face. Even as I'm talking or speaking, I'm breathing. I'm smiling. I'm ensuring that my forehead isn't tight. I use my hands. I talk with my hands naturally, but I also use my hands to pace myself. So when you're talking to your team members, be aware, again, when you lean into somebody, that is saying, I am listening to you. I am present with you in this moment. I am genuinely interested in what you have to say. If you're leaning back, that's saying, will you please hurry up? I could be doing something else right now. Why are you here? Whatever the case may be. So I'm not saying lean in to where it's all awkward and you're in their personal space, but literally a half of inch forward, pivoting at your hip will change the energy between you and your team member. And then of course, looking at them, making eye contact, you know, just looking to the person that's speaking to you. And physically, equality, equity, and inclusion, that means your team members watch your every move. So if they see you may flock to one group of people and not flock to the other, they pay attention. If they see that you're more relaxed in how you engage with this team member and not the other, they pay attention. If they see you go behind closed doors with them and no one else, they pay attention. We all did it. I used to do it. I knew who my supervisor's favorites were. We staff members have those conversations. We shouldn't because it's counterproductive, but we do, again, because we're humans and we're emotions. So if you feel like you aren't a favorite, that affects you emotionally, right? So what are you doing and how are you engaging with each other, with each of the team members in a way that your team can feel like there's fair and equitable treatment across the board? Even small things like going out to lunch. You know, you may just click with one of your team members. You may be from the same community. You may have the same type of dog, or your children go to the same daycare. Those are reasons. That community is very natural. There is no harm behind it, but it can easily be received as, oh, those are her favorite people, or he likes him better. So again, how you're presenting physically, you want it to be just across the board. And mindfulness, which is it is being present in the moment. If your team member is talking to you, sharing with you, giving you an update, be with them. Don't be multitasking on the phone like, oh, I need to send this quick text message out, or I need to get this email. I'm listening to you. You're not. We got the data that shows our mind can only focus on one thing. Our gray matter, literally, we can focus on one thing at a time. You can do multiple things, but you can only focus on one thing at a time. So be present, even if that means saying, is this urgent or can we connect later today or tomorrow? It's okay to push things back if the timing isn't right. We have this culture of like, gotta do it right now. Everything's priority number one. I'm busy, you're important, all this stuff. Wait, is it time right now? Or can we reconnect later? Because I gotta hit submit on this grant, or I gotta get this work plan over. So be present in that moment. Give them your undivided attention, even if it hurts, because I understand sometimes you're tired. You do have all of what we're talking about with your team. You have the same needs because you too are a human. But as you're talking to them, as you're listening to them, be present. And that in and of itself will truly help that engagement and that connection with you and your team. The intentional side, they want you, authentically you. They want to know that who you are is who you are, and you're genuinely interested in their growth, their development, and their success. They want to know that who you are with them is who you are with other people. Now, I understand we're one person and we change a little bit according to the setting. That's normal, but team members pay attention to authenticity. They want the real you to be present in the moment. They want you and them and the mission to connect to the purpose. They want to see why you're genuinely interested in them. They want to understand that you're showing them a different way of doing things because you want them to have a deeper understanding, a deeper knowledge. They want to be connected. And again, I say, people don't always show up and say, hey, I want to be great, or hey, I want to be promoted, but they do. Most people want to advance through the ranks and get to higher levels and become the highest versions of themselves. They just don't always know how. And that's why a high functioning manager can help them lift themselves up, even in the absence of them knowing it. So with your team members, with you, with the mission, let them see purpose. Let them end their days with fulfillment because they're connected to the bigger picture. And of course, consistency. This is one that is overlooked, but so important. Consistency across the board in all human relationships. When consistency is thrown off, when there is that disruption, it causes a response, which can be a little bit of angst or anxiety because it's like, wait, what are we doing? Why are we changing? So if you consistently come in smiling or consistently checking in and asking them, how can I support you? Or you're consistent with your meetings or whatever the case may be, you are creating a culture, a very calm, balanced culture. Now, every day isn't going to be the same. Every day isn't going to be perfect, but you don't want to be on Mondays, happy and bubbly. It's a new week, nothing happy. And Friday, you're like, my door is closed. I can't take anyone. Unless for your mental well-being, you need to do that. But how can you show up consistently for your team member? How can they see that you are who you are and you're with them to get the job done? This is critical. I put a gold star thing there for you to really, really, really spend time with this one during your quiet time, during your time of reflection as you're doing your homework, because this is very, very important. And I remember one of the supervisors I had when I was coming up through the ranks, I never felt like I knew her as a person. I felt like I knew like a walking project management tool. I don't feel like she ever just was anybody other than busy, 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 busy. Now, it wasn't busy, productive, busy, impactful, busy, moving the needle. It was just busy. It was a lot. So be mindful of your driving force as you engage with your team and how you present to them. So, learning in action. Do you have a team member right now that you struggle to connect with? Do you have, hearing all of that, do you have someone that you feel like they're on one island and you're on the next island, and you've taken your boat over there and you've thrown the life raft, but you can't connect with them? If there's anyone, and I'm being mindful of the time, if there's anyone that would like to share, and I see some smiles like, oh my goodness, I know exactly who that person is, just think about it and think about which one of the 4 dimensions that we just talked about may just need some intention, focus on. So I get it. Everybody on your team isn't going to be all kumbaya, hooray every day, but we do want to connect with our people. So considering your staff and what they need, what of understanding how the 4-dimensional human, your team member, what of that was most valuable to you? When you think about it, I want you to think you had a moment where it connects. Why? Maybe this isn't why I'm getting the response that I desire. Or maybe this is why, my team member performs as such, whatever the case may be. See what and discover what was most valuable for you and understanding what they need for the whole person to be responded to. And remember, time, practice, perseverance. So this is a quick overview of the homework. Michelle, they uploaded it into the discussion board, but I want you to spend some time today or whenever you do it over the next 2 weeks and ask yourself, how does your leadership style align with supporting the whole person? Do you find that you're really just focusing on the physical, like, oh, I just want them to come to work, be here in body, or the intellectual, just do your job and that's it? So how does your leadership style, whatever your particular leadership style is, align with supporting that whole team member? Because they are a whole team member. It's not going to be seen in all facets, but they are a 4-dimensional person. And then I want you to very specifically say, what are 5 ways you support your team now? And the reason being is because we don't do a good job of recognizing what we're doing that's good. It's easy to say, oh, I need to do this better. I need to do this more. I'm struggling with this. But what are you doing now? What are 5 things that you're doing now to support your team? And then I want you to conclude by saying, what would you like to start doing to support your team? So this is truly your opportunity to come up with a quick little plan for you and your team. And you don't have to say, hey, I'm here to support the emotional side of you. How are you feeling? Just be open. Just remember that behind their physical body, you have an emotional side of them. They would like for you to be emotionally intelligent. Share emotional intelligence literature with them so they can understand. Because for those strong personalities, those people that, may seemingly have a bad attitude every day, they may not know that, hey, your emotions are on your shoulder and they're impacting the environment. Or you're making other people feel a certain type of way based off how you're feeling. So share the knowledge with them too, because they have to be aware as well. So my final thoughts, when you think about supporting the whole person, your whole team member, that one person that you've been thinking about this meeting, in supporting that whole person, they will have more of a sense of belonging. They will feel more connected to you, the team, the organization. They'll have increased engagement because they won't feel like they're just working. They'll be motivated to do more than just check the box. You've given work to people. It's like, oh, we need you to do this. And they literally just do that. No critical thinking, no problem solving, no go above and beyond, just checking the box. You'll have more open and honest communication, because one thing is for certain, everyone, as I said, wants to be heard and they want to be seen. So when you have that open channel of communication between your team member, they can come to you with issues that may be affecting how they perform. It's not that they're coming with their whole life story or their baggage or they want you to be a therapist. That's not the case. But they're with you probably more than they're with their families. So if they need to have a conversation because it is impacting their work, we want to create that safe space for them to do so, or at least have them know where they can go and talk it out. Be resourceful, right? Whatever the case may be. And you'll create more than just an employee. It's a person. We're humans. I'm a human, and then I'm a woman, and then I'm Black, and then I'm a speaker, and then I'm all these other things, right? But I am a human first. There are just basic needs, my physiological needs, and my self-esteem, all of my needs to get me to self-actualization, where I feel like one whole person that comes with me being me. I can't just put one piece to the side because I'm showing up to speak. It's one person. Your team member can't just put all of their everything to the side and just show up. We want the whole person to be well. We want the whole person to show up and for the whole person to perform. And then you will foster more of a working partnership versus a transactionship, which I know isn't a real word, but a transaction said, here's an assignment, do the work. Here's what you need, do the work. Whatever the case may be, we want a partnership. You are in this together to get the job done. As one. Let them see themselves co-creating greatness with you versus just, oh, my physical body's here today doing work, I'm getting it done because my supervisor told me to. With that, what questions, comments, or concerns do you have? And Michelle, I will hand it over to you because I haven't seen the chat, so I don't know if anything has come in. So I'm going to pause and see what questions you have.
So we've had a few comments come in. I have not seen any questions, so please either unmute yourself or write them in the chat. I do want to make just two really quick announcements. I'm going to put again myself, Mariah, and the general info email in case you have any issues or have any questions, especially logging in. And Mariah is really your go-to person. Also, your login for each of these sessions is specific only to yourself. So please do not share that login with anyone else because it only works once. So yeah, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself or add them into the chat.
I'm just looking through the chat. Oh, I see Sandra's, my leadership style doesn't neatly fit into one category. I possess characteristics in multiple styles, with the most prevalent being visionary and democratic. And it doesn't have to be perfect. At the end of the last conversation, that question came up, and it's not, again, it's an art, not a science. So it's not that you are just one person, because based on the situation and based on what's happening, you may need to shift gears. If you have a problem employee and you just need them to move past that problem because it's causing disruption in the workplace, then you may need to go to commander, but who you are, and going back to that consistency, because we want our team members and we want our team to know that we are one person leading them. We don't want to be a different person on a different day of the week. They want to see a little bit of even keel across the board as to who you are. So it's not that anchored in, I have to be a visionary every day and this is it. You know who you are, and it's more of aligning with, based off what my team needs to get us to fulfill our mission and get the job done, how can I best show up for them and lead them through. So I hope that helps.
Yeah. And April, I am not seeing any other questions. Of course, you can reach out to us, and I'm typing right now. I realized that I almost sent the emails only to April, so apologies on that. I'm going to type in our contact, and then, of course, always feel free to contact us. Just give me 1 second.
Like you're just being listened to, absolutely. All right, well, thank you all so much for your engagement. The assignments, like Michelle said, is in the discussion board, and you never have to upload your assignments, but if you feel you want to, or you want to talk through them or share them with everybody and ask, your colleagues for their feedback, please do, please do. This is absolutely your space to create in. So with that, we will be back on in 2 weeks, our next meeting day. And this was the last little comment I had: support the person, train for the results. So remember, they're a person first, and then they're training for the necessary results. So our next session, develop your team communication, growth, and performance. Again, let us know if there's any area that you want to be lifted up. We were so appreciative of you all filling out the assessments in the beginning to let us know what you need. And at the end of this, our goal is that you get just that. So that is priority number one. So please reach out to us, communicate with us. My email, april@aprillewis.com, if I can do anything. And then I will see you all back on the 21st.
We actually did get one question right at the last minute. I don't know if you have one extra moment just to answer, and it was sent only to me, so I'm going to read the question if that is okay with you. Okay, it says, could the speaker talk about how to support an employee who has a lot of personal issues? The mood, often sad or pessimistic, shows up at work. How am I able to help that person?
Oh, that's a very, very good question and a very real situation. So when someone has a lot of personal issues like that, and they literally cannot find that line between personal and work, so the personal doesn't bleed into work, the safest thing to do is to collectively speak to the group. When you have that collective group, and that's where I say emotional intelligence, that is a topic that's now more accepted in corporate than it was just 5-7 years ago, just in the workplace. I shouldn't just say corporate, but just in the workplace. So if you have your all teams meeting or your staff meeting, that is a great place. So you aren't singling out one person. You create an environment for people to open up and share, use case studies, and then the person will begin to see themselves in the discussion in the absence of you having to say, leave your personal issues at home because it's impacting your work. So truly taking a topic like emotional intelligence or work-life balance, something that's very generic in nature, and then teaching them and guiding them through on how they can manage the personal affairs of their life so it doesn't impede with work. And then, of course, if it begins to escalate, that's where you may have to shift into that coaching leadership and say, I believe, or say what you're seeing, not how you're feeling, what are you seeing? I'm noticing at work that you're being a little short with whatever. So letting them see not what you're feeling, but only what they can recognize and see within themselves. So they're able to consciously say, because I have an attitude, I am short with my team members, or I am short on the phone when a patient is talking to me. So I would start first in the group setting because it's a safe place. And then if it continues to progress or you don't see any changes, then just shift into coaching mode and then work through it with them. Again, not becoming a therapist, but letting them see how their behavior is showing up in the workplace.
Well, thank you so much. And the response said, thank you, good advice to April. So, and I agree. Well, thank you so much again to April Lewis. And we will be meeting again on October 21st. And of course, please go to the discussion board.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good rest of your day.